Everyone, my name is Christer Palo and I'm a chairman for the ROADEX network. And this is the second seminar or webinar we will have now and today, and in a series of total four. Webinars about different topics. Last week we had Roads Over Pete. Over 70 people were in the audience. That's quite good. Today the environmental issues, Anneli will present that, and then the 23rd of April drainage and 29th of April permanent deformation. And of course this gives some kind of introduction to our e-learning topics and also ROADEX topics. And you can read more on the roadex.org website and look at the e-learning package there also. So once again, welcome everyone, and the floor is yours, or screen is yours, Anneli.
Yeah, thanks. So welcome to this webinar, and my name is Anneli Matintupa, and I come from Road Scanners from Finland. And today I will tell you about the background of how we have handled environmental issues in the ROADEX projects and which are the key factors behind the topic and e-learning. I will also introduce to you the contents of environmental e-learning package and what the different parts include. I will also let you know what was updated last year. And at the end, we can discuss how the future looks for low volume roads from the environmental perspective. And my part of this webinar will be recorded, and before discussion part starts, I will stop the recording. As Ron presented you on previous time about ROADEX project, but I will give you a short introduction. So the ROADEX project started in the 1998, and different projects and current network have been going on during 23 years now. And ROADEX is a transnational collaboration of Northern European road organizations to set up, share best practice, research, and develop new knowledge, implement and test new solutions. And as Christer mentions, you can see more information from our website, roadex.org. And ROADEX project has a long history, more than 20 years now. And environmental issues started to be worked since 2004. That year, the first environment-related report was published, and the environmental checklist pocketbook was also published the same year. These were written by Johan Ullberg. Environment work continued, and the ROADEX 4 project include a specific task for the topic. One task was climate change and its consequences on the maintenance of low volume roads. The ROADEX 4 project took place over the years from 2008 to 2012. During that time, for example, a report Climate Change Adaptation was published, and the report was written by Adriana Hughes. The e-learning environmental considerations for low volume roads was released in 2012. And the original language of this was English, but it has been translated to Finnish, Swedish, Norwegian, and Icelandic. And the package was updated on last year. In the past decades, environmental issues have been a fairly minor consideration in the road condition management policies in the Northern Continuing clean environment was thought to be a foregone conclusion. In recent years, however, society in general has become more aware of the changes that could happen to the environment and climate, and to what could be done to reduce the negative influences. This general environmental interest also extends what is happening in the roads and transportation sector. Road construction, maintenance, and road traffic can produce appreciable loadings on the environment if left unchecked. For this reason, active measures needs to be taken to achieve more environmentally sound road condition management operations to achieve both environmental and economic gains. The major environmental loading from the road sector originates principally from exhaust gases and emissions from road traffic. Although road construction, rehabilitation, and maintenance operations can cause significant environmental impact too. Over the last years, an important area of discussions has been climate change and how to reduce its effects. Carbon emissions can have a significant effect on climate change. The greatest source of carbon emissions is traffic, and it is important that roads authorities concentrate on reducing their carbon emissions. Everyone can help reduce emissions by their own individual actions. The national environmental codes and assessments for most ROADEX countries contains guidelines for road design and maintenance. Protected nature areas such as bird and plant reserves generally restrict the location of new roads, especially forest roads. Road management operations can cause many types of impacts on the environment. The most common ones in low volume roads are noise, dust, and vibrations. The good news is that all can be mitigated by good planning and maintenance. For example, dust problems can be reduced by watering, better material choices, and the use of dust binders near the houses. Attention should also be paid to road material choices and road furniture selection in rehabilitation operations and planning new roads. Good material selection can minimize impacts. Unexpected risks such as oil spills can also cause contamination of groundwater or the ground itself. Also, poor practices in culvert replacement can be fatal to fish in small brooks. And then about this e-learning packet. The environmental e-learning lesson consists of 8 chapters. The first chapter is the introduction and tells short history and current situation of environment issues related to low volume roads. The second chapter presents environmental codes and assessments. The chapter provides a general overview how environmental issues has been taken into account in road administrations in the ROADEX countries. This is not an in-depth review, but more of an overview of the policies and guidelines of the participating authorities. Also, description of the authorities' intent to implement their guidelines into their projects. The protected nature chapter consists info about protected nature from each country, also info about nature reserves, Natura 2000, and bird and plant reserves. Protected nature areas are very important issues when designing rehabilitation and maintenance operations in low-volume road networks. Planners and designers should be aware of the different types of protected nature that can be affected by roads operations. This lesson provides a summary of protected environments in the northern periphery. And national parks are protected areas of natural, semi-natural lands or developed land. These areas are meant for human recreation and enjoyment, animal and environmental protection, and restricted from most development. These areas are usually owned by the state. The first national park in the world was established in 1872, and currently there are about 7,000 national parks across the planet. The world's largest national park is located in the northern periphery. The Northeast Greenland National Park was established in 1974. Nature reserves are normally small, more or less virgin areas created to save special biotopes, and they are important area for flora, fauna, and features of geological or other special interests. Each ROADEX country has nature reserves. Nature reserves are founded with the idea of preserving biological variety and biotopes for protected species, preserving valuable nature environments, and providing people with the opportunity of access to forest and countryside. Access is normally unrestricted in nature reserves, but there can be restrictions on hunting and fishing. Typically, a nature reserve can be established to protect features such as eschers, groves with rich biological varieties, virgin forest, natural monuments, and shores. Normally, they are more strictly protected than nature parks. Natura 2000 is a network of the most valuable natural habitats of European Union. The aim of this project is to assure the long-term survival of Europe's most valuable and threatened species and habitats. It's not a system to strict nature reserves where all human activities are excluded. The areas are to be found in the most of the member countries with the purpose of ending the extinction of species and biotopes. An aim of Natura 2000 is to ensure that future management of the areas is sustainable both ecologically and economically. A bird reserve is an area which is designed to protect bird species. A bird reserve can also be called an ornithological reserve. This type of area is a wildlife refuge for birds. The main purpose of bird reserves is to prevent species from becoming endangered or extinct. Nowadays, bird reserve areas are also important to help birds adapt to climate change. As the climate warms, the favorable circumstances for some species move northwards. Typically, The threats to bird reserves are hunting and habitat destruction. Bird reserves are also good locations for bird watching. Usually the management of these reserves is carried out by non-profit organizations or governmental institutions. There are many bird reserves in ROADEX countries, each having its own typical bird life. Chapter 4 that presents the environmental issues related to road management. These are noise, vibrations, dust, road materials, and road furniture. The chapter also discusses impact mitigation and describes risk to groundwater as well as ground contamination and its avoidance and the distribution mechanism of pollutants. Chapter 5, it looks at exhaust gases, carbon emission, and climate change. The greatest source of carbon emissions is road operations, traffic, and it's acknowledged as having a measurable effect on climate change. The EU has a range of targets for waste by 2030. 65% of municipal waste should be recycled and 75% of packaging waste should be recycled and landfill should be reduced to a maximum of 10% of municipal waste. The first chapter here describes in general the climate change and the phenomenon behind it. The second chapter describes ways for the reduction of carbon emissions. These methods include good planning and design, as well as material and technique selection, maintenance, operations, rehabilitation, and timing of road use you can affect as a positive way. Chapter 6 covers the environmental aspect in road design. The environmental aspect of road projects are normally addressed during the design phase, and great efforts should be made to protect the surrounding natural environment from any related impacts. This includes everything from animals and plants, geology and landscape, and natural processes that affect them all. If this can be done and properly documented and informed, it is likely that fewer objections will be raised against the project. Note that both road owner and contractor have a legal responsibility for any damage that may occur to the environment and the consequential cost. Chapter 7 presents roads, water, and wetlands. By its very nature, a road affects the flow of water. The road construction itself can act as a barrier, and designing and construction drainage system involves the need to dig ditches along the road as well as culvert and outlet ditches. In the drier terrains, like coarse grain, glacial moraine, sand, and so on, the impact of this on the environment will not normally be great, but the impact of new drainage on wetlands can be substantial. The natural flow and directions of water should always be taken into account when designing drainage systems. And more detailed about these issues are presented in other e-learning issues. And chapter 8, that includes 10 self-test questions on the topics that have been handled in the lesson. There you can test how well you have learned the content. And what was updated on last year? As I mentioned in the beginning, this lesson was originally created in 2012 and updated last year. So, what was updated? The awareness and knowledge of environmental issues is increasing all the time. So some of the information that was previously included in the lesson was not so current, especially the chapter of environmental codes and assessment of each country was updated. There was also a general proofread with updates to some figures and figure texts. And ROADEX partner countries have had also new national natural parks, so these were added. Finally, recent information related to exhaust gases, carbon emissions, and climate change was updated in the lesson. And then something about future. So the environmental requirements will come more and more important in the future. For example, reduction of CO2 emissions will be hot topic, and all these will affect low volume roads. And the world is changing to use non-fossil fuels. One issue will be to increase the use of electric cars. Charging points will be challenged on low volume roads where distances are long. Also, prices of these will be quite high. In general, the income level has been lower in rural areas than in urban areas. Another problem is trailers. Trailers can be used only with the most expensive models, and people in rural areas need trailers in their everyday life. And rural roads, those have mainly soft asphalt or gravel as their wearing course. They comprise more than 70% of all roads, but the share of traffic performance is about 14%. So the impact of traffic performance on these roads is minor, but their influence for people and their lives in the rural areas is very important. And low volume road networks are very important for the whole society. Almost 100% of the product transportation of farming, fishing, forest industry and aggregate industry use the low volume road network. So this was the short introduction to our environmental e-learning packet. So just go on if you have any questions or ideas to share with us. I will now stop this recording of this webinar.